द कश्मीर फाइल एक फिल्म नहीं है, एक आंदोलन है और इस आंदोलन के साथ जुड़ने की कटिबद्धता भारत से इस फिल्म को देखने के बाद जो लोग बाहर निकले हैं वो औरों तक भी पहुंचा रहे हैं। ये फिल्म उस सत्य को उजागर करती है जो हिंदी फिल्म के पर्दे पर कभी देखा ना गया हो। इतना ही नहीं है बल्कि वो अखबारों के माध्यम से, लेखों के माध्यम से, वक्ताओं के माध्यम से भी बहुत कम अंश में आम जनता तक पहुंचा है। विवेक अग्निहोत्री और पल्लवी जोशी की टीम ने अपने अन्य साथियों जिसमें मिथुन चक्रवर्ती, अनुपम खेर जैसे कलाकार भी सम्मिलित हैं, कई कश्मीर से विस्थापित कश्मीरी पंडितों की आप बीती पर आधारित इस फिल्म को जिस तरह से बनाया है वो देखने वालों को झकझोर भी देती है, उनको नए सिरे से अपनी प्राथमिकताओं का मूल्यांकन करने की शिक्षा भी देती है।
I want to start off by paying our tribute to Vivek Agnihotri ji. His movie exposes the truth of the Kashmiri Hindu genocide that was hidden for 32 years. Vivek ji researched the facts of this genocide, traveled 4 years all over the world, speaking with Kashmiri Pandits who were fortunate enough to run away from this genocide. He recorded interviews with 500 plus Kashmiri Hindus worldwide and then made the Kashmir Files.
It's gut-wrenching. It's a true story of our people, and I think the worst part is hiding and denying the truth.
The reason is that because this is it's a brutally honest movie about what happened to our Kashmiri community.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming here today for a special viewing of the Kashmir Files. This is the first time that the story of our genocide is being brought in front of the world. This is the story of death and destruction and mayhem created in the name of religion that led to the largest exodus of humans in post-partition India.
And there were these small kids gangs or whatever you want to call it, who had gone into adolescence. And then they were like in groups going around in various neighborhoods, and they would bother us and insult us. We're used to that because that used to happen, but this turned into a more ominous thing.
Today's special screening has a special significance for Kashmiri Pandits. Millions of Kashmiri Pandits in India and all over the world have gotten together and are watching the movie together as we speak. So today, on this Sunday, in the 3 p.m. show, in solidarity towards our cause.
I mean, it was a terrific times. I mean, I remember times I was back in a place in Chandpura, and I was sitting at my uncle's place, and during the night it all started in mosques, and they started calling, hum kya chahte azadi and all that stuff, and it was a terrifying moment for all of us. I'm really looking forward for this movie.
It should not happen to any human being. What happened, what should be condemned by whole humanity.
And yet, the story remained untold for 32 years. This film teaches many lessons, not only to the people of the Indian subcontinent, but to the world at large. The people of India need to question their prior governments as to why such a genocide was allowed to happen, and why, after 32 years, not a single person has been held accountable for these acts.
Before it was just a joke kind of a thing. Then it became more like you could sense that very same insult is slightly different. The eyes were different now, and the feeling on the body was different. It was not just a joke that you are a minority, you are the Indian guy, let's make fun of you. But that sense changed, became more ominous. And these small groups of these gang head leaders, probably they were going back and forth and crossing up and down, and they were creating this awareness in that area among people, which later on I came to know some of these gang, or those students or kids, you want to call them, teenage, became area commanders and terrorists. Some of them whom I had fist fights at my young age when I was honestly, I'm very scared to see it. I'm really scared. Because if you don't understand this, that it was a tragedy which nobody knows of. We all had to swallow everything into our hearts, and we had to hide it and suppress it and go with our lives and fight for our future. We were all busy trying to survive and do whatever we could. So I'm scared that those wounds might come out open. So although I have to see it, but I'm scared. That's the right feeling I have right now.
Sometimes I feel myself ashamed of saying this, that being an Indian, we are so coward that we can't do anything and just sing the song of secularism in the world. I think we should stop singing this song of secularism and should stand for ourselves and take actions against these kind of things. And as the Holocaust is in every book of the history in the world, why not the genocide? This story, this reality should be published and God teaches and should taught in the schools of India so people know about it.
But there were indications all over the times when I lived there. There used to be an India-Pakistan cricket match, and guess what? If Pakistan won, it was always a great moment in Kashmir. They used to celebrate with firecrackers and everything. Yeah, so there were seeds from all along. You might have probably read the story of Kashmir, right? You might have heard people talk about how land jihad started back in 1950s when my grandfathers had land, and with that Tillers Act, everything was taken away. It's called land jihad. So it started from centuries, I think. This is not the first migration that happened in 1990, right? So many times have we seen the same thing.
Why do you think it is important for us to see this film?
Actually, just to let you know, sir, मैंने ये movie एक बार पहले देख चुका हूँ. So this is the second time I'm watching this movie, and I know a lot of people have said that it's a movie that is painful to watch, and I definitely agree with them. जब मैंने ये movie पहली बार देखी तो I was in a kind of a daze actually. There was kind of a stunning that happens when you watch this movie. The reason is that because this is it's a brutally honest movie about what happened to a Kashmiri community.
Ensuring the safety of the lives and property of its citizens is the responsibility of the state machinery. But I'm sorry to say the state of India failed us miserably on that account. What is worse, every effort was made to muffle the voice of the victims. In that sense, this was a tragedy twice over. The film also challenges the conscience of millions of good-hearted Pakistani Muslims to question their military leadership as to how state-sponsored terrorism was unleashed to hound hundreds of thousands of people out of their homes just because they belong to a particular faith.
Immediately, I was at a work site when I learned this thing happened. That work site was around 50 miles away from the Srinagar city. I came running, and it was a very tough job to reach my place. I was driving my vehicle myself, but I managed to reach, and I packed my family and left for Jammu.
So while you were watching this film, maybe you were recollecting some of the old days.
I have not witnessed all that what has happened, but what I was narrated to me, that was much more than that.
I think this is the first time the truth about this part of our history has actually come out, and so I feel if people really want to know what was shoved under the carpets, what was not told to the people, they should come out and see this movie. As I said, it's a very honest movie. All the events that have been depicted in this movie, there is absolutely no exaggeration of any events. I was there in 1990 when it was going through with our community, so I can tell you from first-hand knowledge that it is a very real and an honest movie.
And I thought it was a great movie. It's very, very important. I encourage everybody to watch it. especially if you're not interested in the typical Bollywood fare. It's really, really impactful. It will leave you with a lot to think about, and what's chilling is it all happened and it was true, and so I think it's in particular an important movie to watch because it's part of history that like we typically don't hear about. It's even though it just happened 32 years ago.
And what was happening to Kashmiri people? We have been there from the beginning of time. Our ancestors were there when the first man first stepped his feet in that soil, and we have been kicked out of there. And not only that, during this pushing out, a lot of people were killed. People had to readjust, and I also am disturbed that a lot of Indians say they didn't know what was happening in Kashmir, which is unfortunate because we should be aware of whatever is happening in India.
I had heard about all of these things, but it is nothing like seeing it. The film is such a powerful medium, and seeing all that has happened, and I thought that it was very nicely done in the sense that the points of view from the liberals, for instance, from JNU and similar, was also very nicely brought out. And most of people in India are in denial. They don't know the details. They didn't, even when they knew, they could not believe it because of what they wanted to believe, because the ideals of secularism and liberalism and all that we all subscribe to. But that doesn't mean that we should turn our eyes to turn a blind eye to reality.
This film exemplifies how the human rights of hundreds of thousands of people were violated in broad daylight, and a 5,000-year-old civilization was uprooted. The film also sends a message to the Western world and to the US specifically that your foreign policy decisions can have consequences for innocent people in other countries. The sudden pullout of the United States from Afghanistan in 1988 after the Soviets were defeated without a game plan in place, leaving behind huge stocks of ammunition, led to the state of Pakistan using these so-called mujahideen to wage mayhem on Kashmiri Pandits. It is the same breed of radicals that eventually led to the greatest human carnage on US soil, the 9/11. I hope this movie awakens the deeper conscience of the civilized world to be on the watch and hold their governments accountable for wrong policy decisions. We cannot be silent spectators anymore. The world has become a global village, and what happens elsewhere today can affect us tomorrow. God bless you all.
The Kashmiri Pandits you are seeing here, including many of our volunteers, are the ones who got out alive from the carnage of 1990. While some of us who were not so fortunate were mercilessly massacred in the most inhumane manner.
It's time we stopped, putting our head in the sand like ostriches and, encounter the real world.
For 32 years, nobody knows what happened. It's so shocking, and even our Hindus don't know.
And it's been very hard. It's always very hard to logically confront and make the youth of our country and even outside to make them realize what's happening, because we all live in a very idealistic world because we have comfort.
Second thing, now this is the time to take some action. We can talk till tomorrow, but it will not make any effect. I request all of you, if it has touched your heart, please do something. Protect our community, protect our values.
What happened to our government of India? This process was going on for years.
Unfortunately, I hear a lot of people saying we didn't know this was happening in India. That's your fault, You ought to know everything what is happening in India. and to hide behind a statement we didn't know 30 years have gone. I find it mind-boggling that first time you are understanding what happened. And that is a weakness that we have. And hopefully this movie and movies like this will try to make people realize what are the important things in life and try to help them understand their own history.
So I would just like to request everyone if we can get our children to see this movie, because that is the hardest part.
We've seen this movie, an excellent job by Vivek Agnihotri, but we need a voice. I was appalled to understand that only 10% of the Indians vote on a regular basis.
I just saw this movie. It made me cry because it's very inhuman. It should not have happened at all and it should never happen again.
पर विवेक अग्निहोत्री जी का बहुत बहुत आभारी हैं हम लोग कि उन्होंने कुछ ऐसा सच जो अब तक छिपा हुआ था ज्वलंत कश्मीर के अंदर जो लोगों को बिल्कुल नहीं पता था वो दिखाया.
It's gut-wrenching. It's a true story of our people, and I think the worst part is hiding and denying the truth.
The whole point is कि अभी वेस्ट बंगाल में अभी भी ये हो रहा है. I know in Malda this same situation is going on. Same thing happening in Kerala also right now. So we should do something for that, especially for the young generation, and we have a media power and we have to speak it out.
Since the media, the Facebook or all these platforms which are very famous now, and you know even the young generations are on it, so we can try to reach to all of them through this media and give this awareness for all our Indians and for the youth coming, you know, which is very important that the youth knows about this truth.
और अग्निहोत्री को और उनकी पूरी टीम को इसके लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई देना चाहता हूँ कि वो इंडिया चाहे पूरे दुनिया के लोगों का आँख खोल दिए कि क्या क्या कैसे हुआ. और ये मैं कहना चाहूँगा कि ये एक भारतवर्ष के ऊपर एक बहुत बड़ा धब्बा है, और जब तक इस धब्बे को कोई भी गवर्नमेंट ख़त्म नहीं करती है तब तक सबके नासूर बनकर सबके दिलों में ये खटकता रहेगा. तो मेरा यही रिक्वेस्ट है गवर्नमेंट से भी कि इसके ऊपर एक्शन ले, और जो भी कश्मीरी पंडित हैं चाहे जो भी वहाँ से निकले उनको हक दिलाने के लिए काम करें, जिससे कि थोड़ा सा मरहम लग सके इन लोगों को.
मूवी देखकर इट वाज वेरी इम्पैक्टफुल एंड वी रियली फेल्ट सो सॉरी दैट बीइंग एन इंडियन एंड वी डिडंट नो अबाउट दिस, एंड इंडिया गवर्नमेंट अपने देश में रह के भी लोग कैसे रहते हैं, इट्स रियली सैड टू नो दैट.
AMC थिएटर में द कश्मीर फाइल के स्क्रीनिंग के बाद चलते हुए मोहन जी आप ऑर्गेनाइजर में सक्रिय रहे, और कैसा रहा आपके लिए अनुभव? आपने भी पिक्चर पहली बार देखी?
जी तो मैंने भी ये पिक्चर पहली बार ही देखी है. कश्मीर फाइल्स देख के तो मैं बिल्कुल बस स्तंभ रह गया. मुझसे तो बात भी नहीं हो पाई. मैं बड़ा भावुक था कि कैसे इतनी निर्ममता से टेररिस्ट लोगों ने, आतंकवादियों ने जो कश्मीरी हिंदू लोग थे उनका कैसे कत्लेआम किया. तो मैं कम से कम आज ये फिल्म देख पाया, और विवेक जी को मुबारकबाद देना चाहता हूँ. उनको बहुत उनकी प्रशंसा मेरे मन में है कि उन्होंने कितनी अच्छी तरीके से जो फैक्ट्स हैं उनको उन्होंने दर्शाया, और जो कश्मीर में हुआ है बिल्कुल वही चीज़ें उन्होंने हूबहू दिखाई हैं.
इस फिल्म का प्रदर्शन न्यूयॉर्क में AMC थिएटर में एक ऐसे आयोजन की तरह होता है जैसे कि आप कोई अपने पावन कर्तव्य का निर्वहन करने के लिए सम्मिलित रूप से किसी की पीड़ा में सम्मिलित होने जाते हैं, किसी की वेदना जो कि किसी और की नहीं आपकी अपनी है उसका परिचय पाने के लिए जाते हैं, अपनी आंखें खोलने के लिए आते हैं. तो इस तरह का महत्वपूर्ण प्रदर्शन इस फिल्म का न्यूयॉर्क में किसी व्यावसायिक ढंग से न होकर एक प्रकार से स्व प्रेरित कर्तव्य भावना को लेकर हो रहा है. मोहन वांचू, उनके साथी डॉक्टर वीरेंद्र, अनिल मट्टू इत्यादि सारी टीम का धन्यवाद करने के साथ साथ हेरम स्टूडियो के लिए विशेष रूप से ये रिपोर्ट तैयार करने के लिए मेरे साथी कृपा रंजन प्रसाद भी उसी भारत प्रेम और सेवा भाव के साथ यहाँ आए, उनका भी आभार व्यक्त कर रहा हूँ मैं।